So this would be one of our basic economy lines. How I would start when I would receive this crate and I would get this thing out of its skids and ready to go. I'd view all the service photos and pictures and the breakdown video provided to you by Apex. That'll give you a good idea of how things were going to be broken apart, where all the airlines are going to end up going, where all the connections will end up going, any bracketry that we would have supplied, or where we would have left the brackets or hardware at. If we had broken a conveyor, that would be all indicated in that video as well. So make sure you review any of that documentation first. That being said, once we got all of this off the skids, say the conveyor was all in one piece, or we spliced it back together, and I got to the point where I had individual components, I would first take my conveyor and I would drag my conveyor to the location where I would want that to be at, and I would get that set to my line height. Generally, that line height will be set from the ground to the top of the conveyor chain. It's usually industry standard is about 34 inches. So we'll set it to whatever our given line height is. Then we're going to want to make sure that we lay a level down lengthwise on the conveyor chain. And we're going to make sure that we level this conveyor from left to right. And then we'll want to take a small level and make sure that this is level from front to back. And we'll check that in multiple locations down the conveyor. Once we know that we have that conveyor set, that's our first building block. So that's the most critical from the get-go. If that's not right, the whole rest of the line is going to end up being off because everything is built off of that foundation. So we'll set that exactly where we want it, level and at height. Once that's good, then I would, if I had turntables like this line here, I would bring my two turntables in. I would put my loading turntable at the end feed of the line, and you're going to want to set that height so that it sits nicely on the transfer plate or snubber plate, which is this white piece of plastic here. You're going to have a series of L brackets that are holding that in place generally. So you want to get those roughly where those should be at. Get your height to where this table top is just barely rubbing on top of your snubber plate, and make sure that it is also level. You'll want to check it left to right, front to back on top of the plate. Once that's all in place, then we'll be able to go ahead and snug up our mounting brackets. And then I would do the same on my accumulating table, which would be on the downstream side of things. Same exact thing, get it up to height, tabletop sitting on the snubber plate, level front to back, left to right. And once all of that is good, you want to make sure that on all of these items you tighten up the lock nuts on the leveling legs. Every piece of equipment has them. It's very important those are snug so that when things are vibrating and running, those don't move on you. So once I have all of that in its place where I would like that to be, then I'm going to make sure all my railing is in place. Sometimes that's got to be removed during shipment. So make sure that you have your rear rail, your front rail. If in this case this is dual rail, sometimes we'll just have single rail. Make sure you get your railing back on all of your turntables as well, and that's all in place. Once you have all of that in place, then I would go ahead and grab the first container that I want to run, and I would just get that container and set it down the middle. And I set a couple of these down the middle of my conveyor. So here I would set, generally I would like to set one for each, in between each body block, so that I have a nice place to adjust to. Once I set those down the line, I'll adjust the rails on my conveyor, and then once I have all those set, I'll set these cow gates, in feed and discharge, so that every container will move nicely around my turntable, down my conveyor, and onto my accumulating table. And once that's all set there, then I will go ahead and I'll bring my filler into place. I'll get that lined up. It should be marked on the back of the conveyor where those brackets should go. There's also two L brackets for those. So I'll slide that roughly in place where it needs to go. Again, you'll want to bring this up to its height So usually you're just going to bring these leveling legs up to where you're just off the casters so that all the weight is on the leveling legs themselves. And then you want to make sure you level your filler out. So the best place that I like to do to level this out is off of the fill bar, especially on an overflow filler. That is the most critical location. So I would take a level and I'll place it right on this fill bar and I'll level out my filler and make sure you level it out left to right, and you put a level on this front to back, and you level that out as well. If you don't have a level that fits here nicely, you can actually just put it on the aluminum bar that goes between the two uprights as well, and that's the second best place that you can put it. It's a nice square location, so if you got a small 8-inch level or 10-inch level, you can do it right there. Once I know that I have my filler all level, left to right, front to back, then I can go ahead and lock all my leveling legs for that and make sure that my L brackets are all secured from my filler to my conveyor so I know that that's not going to go anywhere on me. Once I have that in place, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug all of my equipment in. So you're going to have a plug for each one of these turntables. This conveyor most likely is ran by your filler, so you'll make your connections to your motor there. You can make all your airline connections. This one has the optional locator assembly. Not all of them will have this, but this one does, so I'd make those connections. You can go ahead and make all your air connections to your cylinders and get all of the indexing back in place if it had been removed. Once all of this, then you can go ahead and power up your filler. Once you power up your filler, at that point I would go and I would manual toggle my indexing gates back out of the way, and I would turn on my turntables and I would manually toggle on my conveyor, and then I would just load containers onto my loading turntable and make sure that they make themselves all the way around the turntable, self-load onto the conveyor. They should go right past these pins because they should be retracted out of the way, and they should make themselves all the way down to my accumulating table. Once I get all that good, I know that that portion is operating well. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring my indexing in. So then I'll toggle my conveyor off. I'll bring my indexing pins back out to their resting state over the conveyor. I'm going to put 4 containers in between my entry pin and my exit pin. Once I have those in there, then I can go ahead and I can make all of my mechanical adjustments for my filler and get all that dialed where I want that to go, which is covered in your particular filler setup video. Once I have all of those adjustments made there, now I can go ahead and I could run my pin indexing ASU, which we have covered in another very specific video as well. Once all of those ASUs are ran and I have my conveyor speed set, which should be set before you actually run your pin indexing ASU, that's part of that, then you can go ahead and start running test cycles. As long as all of your test cycles are going through, then at that point I would go ahead and I would pour water in the machine if you're available to use water. If you can't use water, then you can start with a product, but it's always nicer to start with water just in case you have a leak or some other mishap. It's easier to clean up. But once you get product in the machine, then you can go ahead and start running a real cycle. I would just run one cycle at a time. To start, run a few of them that way, make sure everything looks good, and then you can go ahead and start automatic cycles and let it cycle through, make sure everything looks good.